A very good morning to everyone. Today I will speak about the definitions of economics. The definitions of economics are given by the father of economics, Adam Smith, Alfred Marshall, Robbins, and Paul A. Samuelson. The definition given by Adam Smith, who was the father of economics, is also named as wealth definition. He defined economics as a science which inquires into the nature and causes of wealth of nation. He emphasized production, growth, and distribution of wealth as the subject matter of economics. The main features of the wealth definition are study of wealth. According to the wealth definition, economics is the study of wealth only. The main object of economics is to examine how people earn wealth and spend it. The second feature talks about the causes of wealth. Economics seeks to examine causes which lead to an increase in wealth. Wealth can be increased by its production and accumulation. He also talked about economic man. The wealth definition of economics considers an economic man who is aware of his self-interest. The economic man tries to achieve his self-interest by increasing his material gains through acquisition of wealth. However, he has been criticized by Alfred Marshall. Some of his criticisms are too much emphasis on materialism. The classical economists came in for bitter criticism from many thinkers of that time, particularly Thomas Carlyle and John Ruskin. They dubbed economics as a pig science, a dismal science, bread and butter science, gospel of mammon. They alleged that by defining economics as a science of wealth, classical economists have ignored the higher values of life, such as happiness, love, affection, etc. They emphasized that happy living and not getting rich should be the end of human efforts. He is also criticized on the fact that he has narrowed down the view of wealth. Major criticism leveled against classical economists is that they have defined wealth in a very narrow and restricted sense. Wealth, according to them, consists of material or tangible goods. They have excluded non-material goods or services like health and education from the definition of wealth. He is also criticized on the ground that he has mentioned it as the secondary place to man. Another shortcoming of the wealth definition is that it has given undue emphasis on wealth and in the process has reduced man to a secondary place in the study of economics. It also ignores the problem of scarcity. The wealth definition of economics ignores the basic cause of economic activity, namely the relative scarcity of economic resources. Next definition is of Alfred Marshall, whose definition came to be known as welfare definition. He said, economics is the study of man's actions in the ordinary business of life. It inquires how a man gets his income and how he uses it. Thus, it is on one side a study of wealth and on the other and more important side a part of study of man. The main features of his definition includes study of mankind. Marshall placed primary emphasis on the study of mankind. No doubt he emphasized both mankind and wealth in his definition. He also stated that it is the study of ordinary business of life. By ordinary business of life, he meant economic transactions, that is, the income earning and the income spending activities of mankind. Study of material welfare. Marshall emphasized material welfare as the primary concern of economics. According to him, economics is not concerned with total human welfare, but is concerned with material welfare only. That is, that part of human welfare which is related to wealth. Fourthly, he also gave emphasis on the requisites of well-being. He gave emphasis on material needs that were food, clothing, and shelter. They were the very important economic objects. He also excluded from his definition non-economic activities, those which were not related to money. He is also criticized by Lionel Robbins, who was the professor in the London School of Economics. He criticized economics as given by Alfred Marshall in his welfare definition. He said he regarded economics as a social science only. In terms of welfare definition, the activities of an isolated individual like Robinson Crusoe or a Himalayan saint lie outside the orbit of economics because both of them are cut off from the rest of the society. Welfare definition restricts the scope of economics to the study of persons living in organized communities only. He also has criticized welfare definition, speaking that it is an impractical classification of activities. The distinction between economic and non-economic activities is unscientific, illogical, and illusory, since all human activities have an economic aspect. He is also criticized on the ground that Robbins said that it is a materialistic concept that he is looking for. Robbins has criticized welfare definition on the ground that these definition includes only material things within their purview. They exclude the services, that is the non-material things like the services of doctors, lawyers, teachers from their orbit. Another criticism talks about the restricted scope of economics. Robbins has also criticized welfare definitions as they restrict the scope of study of economics. Economics studies several activities which hardly promote economic welfare. Many goods like liquor, cigarettes, and guns do not promote economic welfare, yet production of these goods constitutes economic activity and hence it is studied in economics. He also criticized that he has taken up the vague concept of material welfare. The welfare definitions are also subject of criticism on the ground that material welfare cannot be quantitatively measured. Welfare is a subjective thing, it is a psychic in nature, so it relates to the mental makeup of a person. It differs according to time, place, and individual. Scarcity definition was given by Lionel Robbins. He said economics is a science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Some of the main features of scarcity definition are: there are unlimited ends, that means the wants, which are referred to as ends over here, are unlimited in nature, from cradles to graveyard. The wants multiply itself and we cannot put an end to the wants that multiply over time. Scarce means the means to satisfy them are scarce. If we talk about productive resources such as land, labor, and capital, which are needed to produce and procure goods needed to satisfy human wants, are limited. Alternative uses of means. These means, land, labor, capital, and enterprise, the productive resources, they can be put to so many other uses. We have to make a choice ultimately between the urgent and the non-urgent wants, because all the wants cannot be satisfied all at one time. According to Robbins, economics is a science because it provides a systematic knowledge with regard to human efforts in solving economic problems arising out of scarce means and unlimited wants. Economics is about making choices in the backdrop of scarcity. Economics formulates various economic laws which help in solving economic problems. He is also criticized. The major criticisms are narrow view of economics. Robin's definition has been criticized on the ground that it regards economics as a positive science by making it neutral between ends. He has also restricted the subject matter of economics. Robin's definition is inadequate because it does not take into account many other important economic problems which are also the part of the subject matter of economics these days. It does not focus on the important economic issues of economic instability, unemployment, and income determination. Then it has been considered as a static definition. According to critics, Robbins has taken a static view of the scarcity problem. Robbins' definition does not take into account the possibility of increase in resources over time. Robbins has treated economics as a science only, but in fact, economics is both science and as well as art. Economic problem may not always arise from scarcity. For example, during the Great Depression of 1930s, it was not the scarcity but abundance of goods which created an economic problem in various capitalistic countries of the world. The most appropriate one is the growth-oriented definition as given by Professor Paul A. Samuelson, who defined economics as economics is the study of how people and society choose with or without the use of money to employ the scarce productive resources which have alternative uses, to produce various commodities over time and distribute them for consumption now or in the future among various people and groups in society. It takes into account all the plus points of all the previous definitions. However, the main features of this definition are emphasis on economic problems. Like Robbins, Samuelson also emphasizes the problem of choice arising out of scarce resources and unlimited wants. Thus, this definition gives a realistic explanation of the economic problems. Long-term perspective. The problem of scarcity of resources is not merely confined to the present time, but also to the future. Wants are not static, they are dynamic. Wants grow and multiply over time. Along with expansion of wants, resources also increase over time. Hence, we are not merely concerned with the allocation of given resources, but also with how the expansion and growth of resources is to be used to cope up with the increasing human wants. His definition is dynamic. Professor Samuelson has adopted a dynamic approach to the study of economics by taking economic growth as an integral part of economics. As such, his definition has imparted dynamism to economic problems. He has also considered it a universal problem. Samuelson's definition is not only dynamic but is also wider in scope. Professor Samuelson has rightly emphasized that the problem of resource allocation is a universal problem both for barter economies as well as for money using exchange economies. His definition is also comprehensive. It is growth oriented and also future oriented. It has incorporated Marshall's welfare aspect as well as the Robbins scarcity and choice aspect. It has a broader perspective as well. Samuelson's definition has broadened the subject matter of economics so as to include consumption, production, exchange, distribution, and economic growth. This definition is considered to be the best definition of economics. Coming on to the branches of economics. There are two branches of economics, microeconomics and macroeconomics. The difference between the two. First, let us understand what is microeconomics and what is macroeconomics. Microeconomics studies the economic behavior of individual economic units and individual economic variables, such as a household, a firm, or an industry. Macroeconomics is the study of the economy as a whole. For example, it is the study of aggregates like national income, total employment, total production, aggregate demand and supply. The difference includes microeconomics studies the individual economic units such as an household, firm or an industry, whereas macroeconomics studies aggregate economic units such as total national income, total production, total employment of the country. Secondly, it deals with the determination, microeconomics deals with the determination of price and output in the individual markets. Whereas under macroeconomics deals with the determination of general price level and national output in the country. Basically, under macroeconomics, we study the rate of inflation or the movement of prices moving up and down in the country. Thirdly, microeconomics helps the individual consumer, firm, or industry in achieving the optimum situation. That is, the individual consumer gets maximum satisfaction, and every industry or each industry that we study are going to get the maximum profits. Whereas under macroeconomics helps the entire economy to achieve optimum situation, the entire economy. Microeconomics, the focus is on price, and macroeconomics, the focus is on income. Microeconomics, it is not important in policy formulation and at national or international level, but macroeconomics is helpful in policy formulation at national or international level. Lastly, microeconomics aims at efficient allocation and use of resources. Macroeconomics, on the other hand, aims at fuller employment of resources. Last but not the least, let us understand the interdependence of micro and macroeconomics. Both the branches are dependent on each other. Let us understand, first of all, the dependence of microeconomics on macroeconomics. Here are certain examples. Determination of consumption. Consumption is an individual economic activity. Consumption of an individual depends upon the consumption of goods and services by the society in a particular place. Secondly, the determination of product prices. The determination of the price of the commodity that we study under microeconomics depends upon the general price level in the economy, which we study under macroeconomics. Similarly, determination of wage rate. The wage rates of labor are affected by the wage rate of all the labor of the economy, which we study under macroeconomics. Again, the determination of profit is dependent on macroeconomic variables like employment level, aggregate demand, national income, and general price level. Determination of interest rate. Interest rate is determined by the interaction between macroeconomic variables like demand for and supply of money. Now let us understand the dependence of macroeconomics on microeconomics. Determination of national income. National income is calculated by the total sum of individual incomes. Total sum of individual incomes. Individual incomes we study under microeconomics, and national income we study under macroeconomics. Determination of price level. The general price level of an economy is the average of all the prices of individual goods and services. Similarly, determination of employment level. To find out the level of employment in an economy, the employment provided by each and every firm has to be studied. Also, determination of investment. Total investment is determined by the rate of interest and expected rate of profit, which is studied under microeconomics. Similarly, study of total savings. The total savings of an economy depends upon the savings of different sectors. Total saving is the sum of personal savings, business saving, and government saving. The saving in different sectors of the economy is studied under microeconomics. Thus, macroeconomics is dependent upon microeconomics. I hope the lesson is understood. Thank you.
Now, let's very precisely understand this topic, as it is very scoring from exam point of view, and it can get a bit confusing as it talks a lot about historical data of various economists and their definitions of economics. To ease our learning, we have classified the various definitions into four groups. First group, science of wealth, the short form being W. Second group, science of material well-being, short form M. Third group, science of choice making, the short form is C. And the fourth group, science of dynamic growth and development, short form D. So we have four groups, W, M, C, D. W stands for wealth, M stands for material well-being, C stands for choice making, and D stands for dynamic growth and development. Now the flow is something like this. First, we learn the economist's name. Second, we learn which group they belong to, whether they belong to wealth, or they belong to material well-being, or they belong to choice making, or they belong to dynamic growth and development. Third, what definitions were given by them. And fourth, the merits and demerits of the definitions. So the first group who thought economics is a science of wealth has two economists. First economist is known as Adam Smith. Adam Smith is also considered the father of economics for the contribution he has made towards economics. And the second economist is J.B. Say. Now I'm going to provide you with a small cheat, and this cheat will help you learn that Adam Smith and J.B. Say were both talking about wealth. Well, who's Adam Smith? Adam Smith is considered as the father of economics. What does most of our fathers do? They're interested in creating wealth. And then when we become 24, our father says us to earn money. What does our father do? Our father says us. I know it's stupid, but this will help you. Okay, so now we know that Adam Smith and J.B. Say were talking or thinking economics as a wealth. Now let's look at the definitions that were given by them. Adam Smith's definition was published in the book named Nature and Causes of Wealth of Nation. And this book was published in 1776. So you can have a rough idea, way back he said about economics something. And that's why he's considered as the father of the economics. So, what was his definition? His definition is an inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations. So, what is important for us is all the three things: the book name, the year, and the definition. I'll repeat. The book name was Nature and Causes of Wealth of Nations. The year in which the book was published was 1776, 1776. And what was his definition? His definition said an inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations. Now, let's look at J.B. Say's definition. So, J.B. Say said, economics is a science which deals with wealth. So, he thought economics was a science and the subject or the matter of interest of this science was wealth. So, if we look at carefully the definitions of both these guys, Adam Smith and J.B. Say, Adam Smith stating an inquiry into the wealth of nations, wealth, and J.B. Say saying science which deals with wealth. So both of them focused on wealth. Now let's have a look at the merits as well as some demerits of this definition. Well, let's start with the merits. First, it stressed on important problems like national wealth. Something like what Narendra Modi is, like creating national wealth, progressing the nation. Second merit, it also addressed the problems of economic growth as problems of poverty, unemployment, etc. can be solved to a larger extent when wealth is generated. Like they all wanted to say, if you generate wealth, there will be no unemployment. If you generate wealth, there will be no poverty. If you generate wealth, there will be no illiteracy. So they kind of, matched every problem of our nation with wealth. The third merit. The definition is focusing on important aspects like production, distribution, and exchange. Because unless there is a smooth base for trade and commerce, there can never be development of wealth. But like any flip side of a coin, this definition has also some demerits. And the demerit is that it is focusing too much into materialistic wealth. There are two types of wealth: materialistic wealth and immaterial wealth. Well, the immaterial wealth is like, the services of the doctor, the services of a teacher. These are like immaterial, where I don't, where I'm providing a service, I'm not providing a material to you. And the second demerit is that it is neglecting social welfare. These definitions are encouraging individuals to grow but not do anything for the society. So these are the demerits of economics as wealth. So now let's study the second group, economics as a science of material well-being. Friends, Mr. Alfred Marshall is a very important name as he is associated from shifting focus of economics as wealth to welfare. He was the guy who said, no, economics is not about wealth, it is about welfare. So he basically from one W to another W, he shifted the focus of the people. Another notable economist under this group is the group of material well-being is A.C. Pigou. So Marshall and Pigou talk about welfare and study about men rather than welfare. Let's quickly dive into the definitions given by each of them. First, let's look at Marshall's definition. It's going to be a very big definition, so keep your eyes and ears wide open. So, what Marshall wanted to say is economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. It examines that part of individual and social action which is most closely connected with the attainment and with the use of material requisites of well being. Thus, it is on one side a study of wealth, and on the other side, which is the more important side, part of the study of men. So, majorly, he focused on the followings: 1. Ordinary business of life. It means activities which occupy a considerable part of human effort. And second, it studies wealth, but more focus is on the study of the mankind. It's time for cheat code number 2. How do we remember that Marshall gave the material well being definition? Well, M for Marshall, M for mother. As far as I know, all my mother is concerned about is my well being, and hence Marshall is all concerned about material well beings. Now, another economist who also falls under this category of material well being is Mr. A.C. Pigou. Now, Pigou defined economics as the range of our inquiry becomes restricted to that part of social welfare that can be brought directly or indirectly into relation with the measuring rod of money. So, what Pigou wanted to say is, for sure, economics should be material, well-being. Economics should be a social well-being, or for the benefit of the society. But economics is only that part, or only that part of the social well-being for the society that we can measure in terms of money. So, if I did something for the society and I cannot measure it in the terms of money, that is not economics. But if I did something for the society, like I donated 50 blankets and each blanket cost 50 rupees, so now I can calculate what I did for the society, I can calculate in terms of money. And that is economics as material well-being for the society. So, though Pigou emphasized on social welfare, but he was concerned with only that part of the social welfare that can be measured in terms of money, and money. So, that sums up the definition of Marshall and Pigou. Now, let's discuss the demerits of these definitions. The first demerit is that they again ignored immaterial things like services of a doctor, services of a teacher, And the second demerit is that Mr. Robbins, who we will see in the next one, Mr. Robbins criticized that the concept of welfare was too vaguely written. It was written in a very general and very broader sense, which needed still more clarity. Well, you know something? All these definitions evolved over time. So, what the economist particularly saw in his time, he made a definition according to him. And so, with the changing in times, came changing definitions. Now, before we move further, let's quickly revise the definitions that we have studied so far. First, we saw the group W. W stands for Science of Wealth. There were two economists there. One, Adam Smith, second, J.B. Say. And we already know the cheat code for this. My father says. Adam Smith wrote a book, and the book was Nature and Cause of Wealth of Nations. Which year was it published? Correct, 1776. Adam Smith is also considered as the father of economics. Then we had J.B. Say. J.B. Say said science which deals with wealth is economics. Then we had Group M, Science of Material Well-being. We had two big economists here. First being Alfred Marshall, who said we should study man over wealth, and second Pigou, who said social welfare which can be measured in terms of money.